Chapter 3.3, Solving Inequalities Using Multiplication and Division. Your objective for this video is to use multiplication and division to solve inequalities. The key concept that we need to learn before we can do example 1 is the multiplication property of inequality. And what it states is that if A is greater than B and C is greater than 0, meaning if C is a positive number, and I multiply both sides of the inequality by that positive number, it stays the same. But if A is greater than B and C is less than 0, meaning it's a negative number, and I multiply both sides of your inequality by that negative number, my inequality actually turns around. Okay, so when you multiply by a negative number, you have to turn your inequality around. We are not going to do a diagram, but I do want to show you an example. I'm going to mark out the word diagram and put example, just to prove that you need to turn your inequality around. We all know that 5 is greater than 4. Well, if we multiply both sides by positive 1, then I'm still going to get that the left-hand side is greater than the right-hand side. But if we multiply both sides by negative 1, it's not, the left-hand side is no longer greater than the right-hand side. Now it's the opposite, it's less than, because I get negative 5 is less than negative 4, which is true. So I have to turn my inequality around if I multiply by a negative number. So example 1, what are the solutions of x over 3 less than negative 2? So my variables right here, I'm dividing by 3. The opposite of that, let me write it out, is going to be to multiply both sides by 3. And it's a positive number, so I can keep my inequality the same. And I get x is less than negative 6. When I graph that, make sure you put your numbers in the right order on your number line and go 2 or 3 in either direction, so I know that you know how to put your numbers on a number line. It's less than, so it's going to be an open circle, and then you're going to shade all of the numbers that are less than negative 6, which is this way. Okay, got it. Number 1, I have C over 8 is greater than 1/4. I would multiply both sides by 8, and I get C is greater than 2. And then graph that on the number line. You would put an open circle on 2 and shade all the numbers that are greater than 2. Okay, example 2. I have the inequality negative 3/4 W greater than or equal to 3. I'm multiplying by a fraction. Anytime you multiply by a fraction in an equation or an inequality, the easiest way to get rid of it is to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of that fraction, so negative 4/3. The left-hand side goes away, and I get W. I multiplied by a negative, though, so I have to turn my inequality around, and I get negative 4. So we're going to put a closed circle on negative 4, and we're going to shade all the numbers that are less than negative 4, which is to the left. Okay, got it. Number 2. I've got negative n over 3 less than negative 1. Multiply both sides by negative 3, because I'm dividing by negative 3, and that cancels, and I get n. Because I multiplied both sides by a negative, I have to turn my inequality around, so instead of less than, it's going to be greater than, and negative 1 times negative 3 is positive 3. So I graph that. I'm going to put an open circle on 3, and I'm going to shade all of the numbers that are greater than 3, which is to the right. Okay, before we can do the next example, we need to talk about the division property of inequality. It is very similar to what you just used. If A is greater than B and C is greater than 0, meaning it's a positive number, then A over C is greater than B over C. But if A is greater than B and C is less than 0, meaning it's a negative number, then A over C is less than B over C. For example, if I have like 6 is greater than 4, well, 6 over positive 2 is still greater than 4 over positive 2. But 6 over negative 2 is negative 3. 4 over negative 2 is negative 2. And negative 3 is actually less than negative 2. So when I divided by the negative number, my inequality had to turn around. Okay, example 3. Dividing to solve an inequality. First, we have to write our inequality out. It says you walk dogs in your neighborhood after school. You earn $4.50 per dog. How many dogs do you need to walk to earn at least $75? So your inequality is going to be $4.50 per dog. At least is going to be greater than or equal to 75. Well, to solve that, you would just divide by 4.5 or 450. And you get D is greater than or equal to. I keep it because I divided by a positive number. And I get 16 2/3. But since you can't walk 2/3 of a dog, you're going to say 17 dogs. At least 17 dogs. Okay, got it, number 3. Pause the video and try it on your own, and I'll give you the answer in just a second. Okay, because you can spend at most $50, then your total is going to be less than or equal to 50. And to get your total, you're going to do 1068 per case, so 1068 times C. And then you're going to solve. So you're going to divide by 1068. When you divide by a positive, you don't have to change your inequality. So you get C is less than or equal to 4.68. Well, if you buy 5 cases, you've gone over. So we're going to have to buy 1, 2, 3, or 4 cases. Or you could say 4 or less cases. Okay, example 4. They give you an inequality. Negative 9y less than or equal to 63. So to solve for y, you're going to divide by negative 9. If you divide by a negative, you have to turn your inequality around. So instead of pointing to the left, we're going to point it to the right. And 63 divided by negative 9 is negative 7. So when you graph it, you're going to put a closed circle on negative 7. And because you had the line under your inequality, then you're going to shade everything to the right because you want to shade the numbers greater than negative 7. Pause the video, do got it number 4, and I'll give you the answer in just a second. Okay, divide both sides by negative 5. When you divide by a negative, you have to turn your inequality around. So you get positive 2. And when I put it on the number line, I put an open circle on 2, and I shade all the numbers to the left. Okay, show me what you know. Solve these 4 inequalities and put them on a number line. Show every step of your work. It's just one step, but show your work. Bring me your paper tomorrow to prove that you did your homework.